if you know that the purchaser has enough funds to purchase the property, then you can pursue the way of an application to court to compel him to proceed with the purchasing of the property, and the court can actually compel the purchaser to do just that. Not can, they will. Depending on, obviously, if the purchaser is not in a financial position to proceed, then he cannot. But it also depends on when does this happen. For instance, there is an out clause in any sale agreement. It's called a suspensive condition. The contract is therefore, most contracts are subject to a suspensive condition that the purchaser must obtain a loan for a certain amount to be able to purchase the property. That's one form of a suspensive condition. Let's just talk about that one. So if the purchaser fails to obtain a loan, then obviously he cannot proceed. But if the purchaser decides to negate his responsibilities in terms of the agreement and just pull out, then the seller can either compel him or can claim damages from the purchaser. Now, the damages that you can claim is, number one, is agent's commission. I think the most important one you want to know about is agent's commission. You can actually claim the commission from the purchaser because he has not complied with the agreement. Okay? So this is I understand that the purchaser just wants to cancel. There's no legal grounds for him to cancel. Okay, so then you can claim agent's commission. Second thing you can claim is the conveyancing costs. Okay, and the third thing is the seller can claim damages depending on what and if there are damages that is occurred in the process. But an interesting damage claim that the seller can put in, and which the seller won't know the exact amount upon cancellation by the purchaser, is he has to now sell his property, put it back in the market and sell it. If he sells the property at a loss, he can claim that from the... And now, once again, I must reiterate, one does not necessarily, sorry, someone's mic is on. One does not necessarily take the route of legal action because you don't know as owner or seller or as an agent whether the purchaser has got the money to pay you at the end of the day. So it won't be at your best interest to sue a purchaser if the purchaser does not have the money. He's a man of straw. He does not have the money to pay you. Then you make a call and you cancel, or you just cancel and walk away. But legally, you can claim for those three damages, and you can also compel the purchaser to proceed with the sale if he's got the money to do that.
Oh, so it's entirely on me as an agent and on the seller. If we decide we don't want to take the legal route, we can just cancel and let it go.
Correct, you can do that. That's a decision you can take.
Oh,
and
all right, thank you.
That's most likely the decision that bears the best fruit, because to litigate on each and every transaction a purchaser does not want to proceed with refocuses your energy on a matter of matters that don't make money, and that's a problem.
And how long did you say they have until they can cancel?
It depends on the purchase price. If the purchase price is 250 and below, then there's a cooling off clause in each and every sale agreement that makes provision for the purchaser to cool off within a 5 workday period. If the transaction is for more than that, most likely, then what must happen then, if a buyer does not want to proceed, he must wait for the bank to either approve or disapprove his loan and then make a call, because If he waits and he does not get a loan, then he doesn't owe anyone any money because he has not, he's still in compliance with the agreement. But if he cancels, he runs the risk to pay the commission, the costs, and the seller if there are any claims. So the best way forward would be for a purchaser to talk to his bank, and that happens a lot. So usually what happens at this stage, a purchaser goes to the bank and tells the bank, listen, I don't want to proceed. And then the bank will assist him by not giving him a loan. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's usually what happens.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the banks play a role there where they help their customers. And it happens a lot. I've seen that happening a lot of times. But it's better for the purchaser than to wait the period for the suspensive condition, to wait that out, and then fail to get a loan. And then he can say, well, I didn't get a loan and the contract says it's subject to me getting a loan. So then he doesn't run the risk of having to pay all these losses, and yeah, helps him a lot. And the bank helps. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you
100%.
so much for that. Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
okay. Anyone else?
Alex, are you here? Alex? Dandy?
Yes, Rina, how are
Yes.
you? How is everyone?
Fine and yourself, Dandy. Rian, let me just introduce Dandy Matamela to you. He's the CEO of our company and yeah, the brain behind all this. So Dandy, I don't know if you've got some questions, please.
Hello, Dandy.
Hi, Mr. Rian. Just to show face, this is Dandy. Unfortunately, I am, well, let's just say I'm parked before you ask how I'm driving and show a video.
Oh, that's good. Thanks, Danny. It's nice to put a face to the question.
Thank you. And thank you for honoring us with your time. We really appreciate it. One of the issues that were raised were the effect of your force majeure in relation to property clause and all of that. What is the implication of that? What I'm seeing a lot in the market is that you have made an offer to purchase in February. I'll give a very real example of what's happening in one of the deals, for instance.
Okay.
In February, we got funding from the bank, and then we literally left the development funding institutions and went directly to the bank, just to avert the issue of time for disaster. So that was in February, before the close down, before the lockdown.
Okay. Hello.
Now sorry, we got cut off. I don't know which part you had.
No part.
I think you disappeared. You said you got development funding from the bank in February, and then lockdown happened.
Then after lockdown, can you hear me?
Sometimes. The connection isn't that good.
Yes, so after because of the risk. Hello, can you hear me?
No.
Hello.
I can hear you a little bit. Try to talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, Dandy.
Can you guys hear me? Rila, can you hear me? You have an offer that was expiring in February and you had a loan agreement in February. That's the first part, quote. The second part is because of the force majeure, now your time has lapsed. There's been a good 90 days non-performance deal.
Okay. I think you
what do you call it? The seller.
No.
You can't hear me, ne?
No. Okay, Danny,
Okay.
maybe you can hear me. Just acknowledge if you agree, because maybe I caught what you're trying to say. You can just fill it in if it's not true. You're saying that you've.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yeah.
Okay, good. So in February you got a loan, and also the loan was approved in February, and then because of COVID, something happened, and then some time period lapsed. I'm not sure which time period.
Yes, I'm saying so. There was
basically the offer lapsed.
Okay,
Yes.
so the offer lapsed. So it was subject to a loan, and the loan wasn't approved before or on the correct period. Is that what happened?
The loan was approved.
Yes.
The loan is approved before February, but after the COVID lockdown, let's say that approved, in fact, to give you the real numbers, they had approved a loan funding of 45 million rands.
Okay.
That was in February. The lockdown happened, and when they came back in June,
yes,
37 million rands. So there is 8 million rands short. And they gave their own reason. So what is I'm asking, Uri, is that not, even from the banking side, are they not being inconsiderate in terms of the application of the force majeure? And can that be something that one can, even if it's just by reminding them? I know we ended up accepting the lower amount that they've submitted, but I think it's I want to know if it's even an issue to raise. But they changed the amounts lower than what we applied before the force majeure.
Okay, you applied for 45 million, and it was then first approved.
Yes.
They approved it, so they made you an offer.
Yes, we have a term sheet.
Then why? Okay, what was their reasons for discounting the approval with 8 million rand? What was the reason?
Economic reasons. They said it's a risk factor that they've used now due to that's why I'm calling it that economic factor. Is that not a force majeure? In other words,
it depends on the. Yeah. Okay, so let me just assess what happened. So they made you an offer, but you haven't, at that stage, you haven't signed a loan agreement yet. Have you signed the loan agreement?
No, the loan agreement was not signed. The term sheet was signed.
Only the term sheet. Okay.
Yes.
So what forms a bond to be registered in the deeds office is obviously 2 or 3 things. It's firstly 4 things. Firstly, they make you an offer, and then there's the term sheet that you accept. Then there's all the documentation you sign with the attorney. One of those documents you sign is a loan agreement. And then loans debit authorities, a lot of small documents you sign, and then the bond the bond agreement itself. The bond gets registered in the deeds office, the bond links up with the loan agreement, which also then links up right through to the offer. But it depends on which bank and how the documents are drawn up. Most likely, your bond registration in the deeds office makes the money available to you. Anything can happen before then. And usually the banks apply a lot of own ideas about how they are willing to and when they are willing to register a bond before registration. So if your documents have been signed, the bond or the agreement is only finalized upon registration in the deeds office. You sign all these agreements before registration, and anything can happen before registration, in which case they can still cancel the bond. They can even cancel the full amount a day before registration. They can. If they usually their loan agreement that you sign makes provision for the bank to decide up until registration, and even thereafter they can still call up the loan if there's certain conditions you don't comply with. But you have to read the loan agreement very thoroughly. That agreement makes provision for them to cancel the whole agreement right up one day before registration if they want to. And it's happened a lot in the past. They might decide to up the interest rate, or they might decide that their risk is too high now at this stage to give you a loan, and they won't. So the fact that they gave you anything still counts for a lot. So they may use force majeure. And I don't know the bank and the agreement, but if you go and have a look at your loan agreement, you'll see that they've got very wide berth of rights up until registration, because when it's registered and the money is paid over to you, it's gone. They can't do anything after that. But before that, they can still change and bring in new conditions and do whatever they want to. And they actually do it. They do it a lot.
Okay. So there's no effect on even appraising the force majeure or anything like that. So it's still yet within their rights. So in short, I can't sue anybody.
I would prefer looking at your the documents that you've signed to decide what your rights actually are. But usually the banks cover themselves.
Yeah, it was just the term sheet. We didn't have anything.
Yeah, that's a very thin document. The loan agreement is the actual document that you sign. And in the loan agreement, you will see that it's worded in such a way that they still have wide berth of rights to cancel and to change and amend the loan agreement or the loan itself, the interest rate, whatever they want to, because in terms of in terms of the Banking Act and in terms of their agreement, they are not willing to help clients that might be in peril just before registration. So they can cancel any loan agreement up until the day before registration. In fact, what happens is when an attorney, a bond attorney, lodges a bond, they must first get approval to lodge the bond from the bank, which ticks off a box in their on their side to say, okay, we agree that all the documentation is in place and you may proceed. And then a day before registration, they must give you the proceed to register the next day. If they do not give you the proceed, they can withdraw the bond at that stage. If they do not give you the proceed, you must and tell you to withdraw all the documentation. You withdraw it, and they never register it if they don't want to. That's in terms of their loan agreement. You must also take in cognizance the Credit Act is very strict on banks and service providers that loan out money. If a service provider lends money out recklessly to a client, the client is entitled to an application to court that says that they forfeit all the money that they've given you. So the banks are not in a favorable position, and therefore they word all their agreements in such a way that they can cancel it at any time before registration or amend it. For instance, you go and you buy yourself a nice new Mercedes or BMW just before you get the bond is registered in the deeds office. They pick it up. They can cancel the loan immediately. Any type of risk that puts their money in peril, they can cancel the deal immediately. Are you there, Danny? Danny? You are muted.
It seems we have lost this. Is he still there?
Rian, I can just introduce Moses to you that he was just talking. You know the name Moses now. I've used it quite often. And he's our office manager, and also he's part of our facilitators for the NQF4.
Okay. Hello, Moses.
Hi, Rian. Pleased to meet you.
Yes, same here.
Thank you.
Manasseh, do you have any questions? I see you coming in.
Yes. I need to find out, as an agent, can you kick out any person without a reason? Well, after giving them a notice.
Give me more information.
No, you just don't like the tenant anymore, and you give them maybe a month notice or 2 months notice to move out.
You can cancel the agreement if the tenant fails to comply with all the conditions of the agreement. So
no. So in terms when the tenant is in no breach at all, and I just don't want the tenant anymore.
No go. Can't do that. The thing is, you can try, but you must. There's a legal way and there's an illegal way. So you can move in there and get the muscle in and throw them out. That's one way to do it. But legally, the only way to do it is to do it in terms of the agreement. And your agreement is quite literally protective of tenants in terms of the Rental Housing Act in South Africa. Tenants are entitled to remain in those properties or in their properties in terms of the Act. So what you need to do then is go to a court and apply to the court to put out the tenant. You can only do that if you've got legal grounds to do that. So, for instance, the tenant is not paying, or the tenant is not complying with the body corporate's rules, or whatever the reason might be. So then you can ask the court to put the tenant out. But no, you can't yourself just throw out the tenant. It's not allowed. And then there's also the Rental Tribunal, which is a body created by the Rental Housing Act. They sit in Pretoria. I can send you that. But usually what happens is when a tenant and a landlord has a problem, and they can't solve the problem between themselves, instead of going to court, you can go to the Rental Tribunal, and they have officers appointed by the tribunal that act as intermediaries, and whatever the order is that such it's usually an attorney or it could be a judge, it could be a magistrate, it could be an advocate. So they appoint several different people. So if you sit in front of that person and he decides in favor of the tenant or in favor of the landlord, it becomes an order of court. You cannot, and you must comply with it. but it's a cheaper way to access and a quicker way to access your legal rights in terms of disputes in rental agreements.
All right, thanks.
Hi, Rian. Hi, Rian. Can you hear me?
Yes, is it Kabelo?
Yes, Kabelo here.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, just a question. In the event that, let's say, you are an estate agent, right? And you are helping this owner of a block of flats with their rentals, and the owner decides to sell, right? I heard what you're saying to say that should the new tenants, when they come in, they absorb the old contracts until the end of their period. But now the new owner wants to start with renovations, right? Then what the new owner does, he goes door to door, knocking on tenants' door to ask, okay, can you move out quicker? I'll give you 1 month's worth of rent. Then some tenants agree to that and they move out. And some tenants say, no, I can't afford to move out. I want to stay my term. But then the new owner starts now with the construction, and it becomes so unbearable, as in walls are breaking left, right, center, except in your tenant's place only. But the neighbors and the what every day 6 to 5 there's a drill going on. What can one do in such a case? They did not chase you out, but I mean the noise of the hammers and everything, they are so unbearable, and unfortunately you can't afford to take their deal because of circumstance.
Okay, just a little bit earlier, I think we touched on something similar. So in terms of the Rental Housing Act, a tenant has got a right to access the property or to use the property for the purpose for which it was provided. And with other words, if the landlord is the cause of not providing the tenant of a property his rights in terms of the reason why he's renting the property to live in it, and is actually taking away those rights, then the tenant has got a right to, obviously then I would propose him going to the rental tribunal and make a case against this landlord to say, listen, you are making living there unbearable. I want to live there. I'm not going to move out. I'm entitled to living there. I've got a rental agreement in place. You are supposed to provide me with tenancy to the property for the purposes which I'm renting the property, which is let's say a house or a flat or whatever. So my rights is that I've got unhindered access to the property. I've got unhindered, I've got quietness. I can rely on quiet circumstances because that's how properties must be rented out. And they will then order the landlord to stop with his activities, and they can do that. They can compel him to do that.
All right, thank you. If you can kindly send to Rina that you say there's a housing rental tribunal in Pretoria.
Yes, I'll send you the address. I'll send a drop-in.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's also on the internet. You can go and I just looked it up.
I see the one in Joburg. I don't see the one in Pretoria.
There's one in Pretoria as well. Just below the Union buildings. The street that drives right in front of the Union buildings and goes down to the mid city area.
Okay.
When you go down that on the downhill on your right hand side, but I'll send you a drop-in.
All right. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, Kabelo. Okay. Any other questions?
Hello, Rian. You're speaking to Alex. I wanted to ask a question. Can a potential tenant come and sign documents with you to rent out your property, and then try to cancel because they saw another agency leasing a similar property at a slightly cheaper rate? Can they come to you and say, I want to cancel after all the contracts have been signed? Can they come and cancel to go live somewhere cheaper? And also, in terms of buying property, can someone come to an agent and sign papers to buy property and then try to cancel to go buy a similar property or the same property with another agency at a cheaper price?
The short answer is no. They can't do that. After you've signed an agreement, you are bound by it. So it depends on what your contract says in terms of your cancellation clause, how you can cancel the agreement. You must look at your contract to cancel it. So they can't really what usually then would happen is, let's say, for instance, they've paid a deposit. Let's say a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever the deposit is. They will definitely forfeit that deposit. They can walk away if they've signed but they haven't paid anything and they just walk away. It's difficult it's throwing good money after bad money for a landlord to try and sue him, to compel him to comply with the agreement. You understand what I'm saying? But
yes, I do.
You can still sue him for your commission, your future loss of commission. You can do that if you want to.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Any more questions?
Maybe, Rian,
Yes.
There's a case of the situation where this relates to more on the development side. So
Yes.
you purchase a property, understanding that the zoning has been put in place and the bulk infrastructure. Well, we normally, it's I don't know whether it's assumed that the bulk infrastructure should be there in place once the zoning has been approved. So, and then later when you want to do a development, find out that there's no bulk infrastructure. Who do you deal with? Is it the seller, or do you go after the municipality? What is the recourse in that case? Because then
It's
if
quick. No,
bulk infrastructure you cannot build.
You're in trouble. There's an old legal principle. It says buyer beware. So if you buy, you must make sure that what you are buying is what you're actually thinking you're buying. For instance, if you buy a property, Section 2 of the Alienation of Land Act says that everything you want to... sorry, someone has raised his hand. The Alienation of Land Act says that anyone buying or selling a property must put it in writing. That's a very important part of a lesson that all of us must execute every day, is to make sure that all agreements have all the conditions that is necessary for the seller and the buyer in terms of everything that they have negotiated must be in writing. Everything. If you don't put any, if you leave out putting something in writing, the seller or the buyer can't, after the contract has been signed, go back and say, listen, okay, but we discussed it. You said you will give me that Zozo hut at the back. You said it. You told me you will give it to me. Now I'm buying the property. It's gone. If it's not in writing, the purchaser cannot compel the seller to comply. Same with buying a property that's got certain rights, or you thought it had certain rights, but they might have lapsed. there are many things that lapse. For instance, I've had I've been in hundreds of negotiations where people are selling or trying to sell a property that they think they've got rights or certain rights on that property, and they do not have it. They were told by their professional team A, B, and C, but it's not true. For instance, your EIA lapses after 5 years and cannot be revived. You can only revive an EIA if you start with groundworks, for instance. Then it can extend over the 5-year period. For instance, nowadays under Spluma, if you get approval for a township or you've applied for zoning rights, if it's been awarded to you, you must put everything in and you must start with that development in 2 years' time, 24 months' time. If you fail to do that, then the rights lapse. You cannot extend it over that time period anymore. In terms of the old ordinances, you could still have extended your developmental rights year on year if you ask for it, but you then had to ask for it and they give you permission to do it. So as far as your question is concerned, what rights do you have to recourse or whatever, you would have to start afresh or just continue from where the applications and the process for this either rezoning or new township or whatever it is, the rights you thought you had, you would have to proceed from there on and complete it. But you were talking about, I think you said something about the bulk services, the internal services. Did you say something about that?
Yeah, then you discover that the municipality says no, there's not enough water, for instance.
Oh yes, that one. I know about it. You can actually compel them to give you water, but then you must bring an application. It depends. If they have already given you the rights to, well, they have approved the rezoning, which includes their approval for giving you water, then you can compel them to comply with it. You can actually take them to court if you want to. But if you haven't got approval, or if your approval was made conditional upon them having enough capacity to provide you with water, then you are in trouble.
One cannot assume that because you've got a zoning certificate for that says this for a particular place, it's by implication is that all the services are available.
For instance, we are now looking at buying 2 properties in Midrand. The first step before we negotiate anything with the seller is we go to the city council and we find out exactly where the pipes, the physical pipes are, the sewer, electrical and water connections are. We find out where they are. That determines how far we have to do connections. Secondly, we find out if there are any roads that has to be upgraded to comply with this, or if you bring the application. Then the next thing and the most important thing we do is, if we are happy with services being around or near the property, then we make sure that there are capacity for those services. So we request the city council to give us an estimation of the capacity that's available for the area. And then you must remember, they might say, well, we've got capacity, but we are on the brink. We only have, let's say electricity, we only have 2 or 3 kVA left for this area. And if your development takes up 1 kVA, your development application must be first in the row. If you are too slow to bring your application and 2 other developers come in and they take up all the capacity, and you still thinking that, well, there is capacity, they told me, and you lodge your application and the capacity is gone, then you don't have capacity. So it's very important to make sure, you must do a due diligence before purchasing any property, to make sure that the services are available in the area and that the capacity is there for those services. Otherwise, rethink your purchase. Rethink your strategy must be to make sure that you can do a development on a property. It's very important. And then also, if the city council, for instance, if someone brings you papers and they say, no, everything is in order, read those papers. Read it. Because the city council may say that you can have electricity. We are giving you these rights, subject thereto, that availability for electricity or water or sewage or whatever is available in that area, which means that now you've got a consent for whatever. You've got your rezoning certificate is there. You've got it. But in your document attached to that opening of a township application or rezoning application, the documents attached to that attest to the fact whether there are services or not. So you must read it. The first page is not a definite answer to your question. You must go through the whole document.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps just to add something very quickly here, which I think it's important to note going forward, I think, is that particularly because this class or the people you have here, we are probably going to be doing a lot of either selling or buying properties for development. The biggest issue that we find, and I'm saying this as a general note, is we find that the people, and it mainly estate agents, who say the land is zoned, and you go on the note that the estate agent, so you guys, you tell someone that the land is zoned, meaning that it has been approved for zoning subject to certain conditions. There is a difference between a zoning approval or conditions for establishment of a township, and almost all of those things. In some places you find that there would be a small little note at the bottom that says either not yet.
Yes, I agree with you. The art of selling developments is it's a very specialized area, and there's a lot to learn. A lot to learn additional to just being a residential agent. So, and there are also many different categories of commercial agents that you get. You get commercial. They will say, "I'm a commercial agent," and what I mean by that is they put together tenant mixes for strip malls and malls and so on. But they don't deal with developments. And then you get agents that deal with development and they know nothing about rentals and so on. So it's a specialized area, and you know what? You should know that although you're studying to become agents and or developers and so on, you will never know everything. So what you do is you appoint competent people to help you with these processes that have studied at university different subjects that then apply to a development. For instance, you get on a development, you get your surveyor, your architect, your quantity surveyor, your project manager, your civil engineer, your electrical engineer, and your traffic impact engineer, and your geological engineer, and people that you have to consult, I think, when you buy a property. What we typically do is we've got a project manager that goes out to the city council, look at all the documentation that they've got available on a piece of property, make sure that it's got everything. So, for instance, if a seller gives me documents, I take it and I say thank you very much, and it gives me a overall view of what's going on a piece of land, but it doesn't give me all the information. So then I go to the city council and I talk to his quantity surveyor, and I talk to his town planner, and I get all the information I need. I extract it from them, and then I go to the city council and I confirm it. So we don't just take it on face value. We audit whatever is given to us to make sure that everything is in order. And then you can make a call on price and on profit and all of that. A quick calculation on the back of your cigarette box if you want to. That normally gives you an idea, because you will know after a while what it costs to install services more or less and so on. So you can then extract you'll do a quick calculation to know whether you're going to make profit or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, thank you for covering. My network was failing me there. I think that's a very important point to say. Even as property practitioners, we shouldn't take what we find on the face value. We should still do our own due diligence, so that when we advise better, or when we are buying, we know that we are buying better.
No, but you must get people that you can really trust on your side, and get them to help you with these things.
Yeah.
Ria, just a question.
Yes.
On what you just explained to Moses. With regards to buying a development, can you put a suspensive condition that says, I'm buying this in condition that the municipality agrees to render me these services? Is that possible? Because it's outside the hands of the seller. Can you put such a suspensive condition?
Yes, but you make it for yourself a lot easier if you the condition you add to the contract just says that you've got a due diligence period of 90 days or 60 days or whatever, within which you've got to so you sign the agreement, and the seller cannot sell to someone else subject to the condition that you must complete your due diligence, and then at the end of that, or before the end of that period, you give a notice to the seller that you are willing to proceed, and then you start paying and doing whatever. So yes, you definitely put it in, but you don't have to put in all the things that has to be complied with, and there must be 40 properties there, and there must be the water there, and there must be this and that. You just say you make it subject to a due diligence period of so many days, after which you will proceed if you decide to go on.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Rina, it's Patricia here.
Patricia.
Yes, I want to understand what happens in case where you've got a rental property and you have promised people a certain date for occupation, and unfortunately on that particular day you are not really ready for them to take occupation. What is their right, and how is that going to affect me as the property owner? And what is it that they can do legally towards myself as the property owner?
You don't ask easy questions, eh? Okay. Basically, you must give occupation on the date that you've signed for. Once again, if someone is in breach of contract, the other party can obviously claim that the person being in breach must comply. That's basically all you can do. But you as an agent must actually go out to whomever is the problem and talk to them and get them out of there as quick as possible. That's a way to do it. You must negotiate. Yes, the tenant can claim and can sue and can do whatnot, but it's not effective.
Okay. What you just said, does that apply also on a newly developed or a new development? You've got a new development, and that was a day that you had promised those people to come in. I'm just facing, for me, it's a very small property though, but I'm facing that challenge wherein tenants were to move in over this weekend, and I know I will not be ready this weekend. I'm trying to speak to them. They don't seem to want to understand whatever I'm trying to explain, even though they were 5 days, 6 days before the time, the occupation date. They still insist we are coming and you must make sure that we are housed.
Well, actually, yeah. Okay, so it's a new development. Yeah, it's very difficult with new developments. I've been there myself in the past, but then usually I negotiated with the people. For instance, you cannot give people occupation of a property if you don't have an occupation certificate issued by the city council. That's one of your perils and problems. I don't know how far you are with that. Why can't you give them occupation?
Challenge with service, water connection has been a challenge in that area. There was water, but all of a sudden there is no more water, and council is still working on the problem. They cannot give me a definite date to say when exactly am I going to have water in that development.
You should cancel the agreement with those people, because it's going to take you quite a while to sort out your problems. It's water. If there's no water, they couldn't have given you an occupation certificate. Have you got one?
Yes, there was water. Something just went wrong with their own system. And then there's no more water in that street where we are. And it's been two weeks. Only water is the problem.
But then tell you,
those people can come in.
No, but okay, this is not your fault. And then you should look at your sale agreement. Sorry, your lease agreement. Your lease agreement makes provision for such cases in which it's not your fault, whatever the reason is, a third-party reason in this case. So you can tell them, no, move in. You can move in if you want to. There's just no water. And it's not my fault.
Okay, then it's not very complicated. I thought it would be very complicated. I understand you. I've got the last question.
Yeah, sure.
The last question is regarding a township establishment that has expired. It has expired. You have to restart that whole process. So now in this case, the township establishment, you still contribute your bulk contributions. What happens then to those contributions? Because you have paid for them, now your township establishment has lapsed.
No, if you've paid your contributions, it couldn't have lapsed. Did the city council take your money?
I'm trying to do due diligence on a property. The seller is saying township establishment had passed and they had paid back contributions. I cannot get that information anyway. That is why I want to find out if indeed it was paid, then what happens to it? Or is this seller maybe trying to play me here?
He's trying to play you, I think, because you don't pay your bulk. For instance, your bulk contributions pays for the streets, external services and so on. That's your bulk contribution, not for internal. So if, for instance, you've got to pay a contribution towards the street, the sewer, the water, the electrical connections upstream, you don't pay that unless you've started with, installing all those services, because either you pay your bulk contribution or you keep the money and you upgrade the street. See what I'm saying? So you are on your way to complete your external services and pay your connection fees. You have to do that. You cannot complete your internal services before you've completed your external. You can do both simultaneously, but you will only get permission to promulgate, to advertise in the government gazette if you've paid your bulk contributions, your connection fees, and all your external services are done and dusted, and internal is there. But internal comes first, and then external comes first, and then internal. But I can't understand why this. He's paid his dues, then he can proceed. You must just proceed within 2 years' time. You know what I'm saying? So if he started with the process, he started, then it doesn't lapse. So I don't understand this thing about he's paid his bulk contributions. Maybe just call the city council and find out whether he's paid.
Okay, I think I'll do that.
Or let him show you. He can send you proof of payment. He must send it to you.
Okay. Thanks for that.
And then I would propose you contact me afterwards and we discuss this matter further, because it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Okay, Patricia. Okay, bye.
And from Joyce.
I have a question. My question is, what happens in a case where you've bought land and you've started building? You're building a house in an estate, and you find out that you've actually built over a pipeline, a water pipeline, or it could be a sewer line, and you have to demolish and start over. Who bears the cost in that case? Does the municipality pay, or you have to bear the cost of demolishing and starting to build?
If it was you, yes.
But you didn't know that, after all the geological tests have been done and you are sure and certain that you are able to build in that area.
Buyer beware. Buyer must beware. Your problem is if you bought a property from another person who did it or who didn't do it, it was the owner before him who did it, then you cannot claim from your seller. And you have no other agreement with a third party, so you can't claim from a third party. So your problem is your problem. You must then demolish. I've had this in the past. I've had similar problems in the past. And people had to demolish the buildings, the improvements.
At your own cost.
Yes. You can obviously ask you can go to the city council and request that at your own cost you move the sewer line to another position. But then it's going to be your cost. You don't have to demolish. And they still have to approve it. And there's a lot of other things that come to play when that happens, but you can do it. We've done that in the past as well.
Okay. Even if it affects more than one person in the estate, maybe there's just a few houses, it could be 2 or 3 people. Could that be a case, perhaps, that you jointly fight as the 3 families?
No, the problem, as you've described it, is on your property or the property you're talking about, and the owner of that property is liable, not the others. The others have a right to the sewer or to the electricity or whatever. And whomever on your property, you know the owner, your property creates the problem, so the owner must sort it out.
Okay.
Hi, Rian.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, not good news, but yeah.
Munasi here. I just want to make a follow-up on the question.
Okay.
Rian, sorry, maybe this is the last one from my side. Rina, maybe you can also come in. You discover you want to the issue of the building line, for instance. When you look at it, you see it off, like it's not necessarily in line. Rina, if you can clarify that issue, maybe for Rian to be able to give advice on it. Do you go ahead and buy such a property? You can see on Lightstone, it shows that it's off. So it's almost like the different stands have already shifted. They are not sitting on the right boundary lines. Number of stands. What do you do in such a case?
Well, you draw your site development plan that's lodged with the city council for the development. Find out where the sewer lines and everything is, because it's on that site development plan. You actually get 4 or 5 site development plans. So, for instance, the layout of the urban is there, the layout of electricity is a different one, water is a different one, sewage is another one, and so on. So you take the one that you need to discover the problem on, and you investigate where it should be and where the house is at this stage. And obviously, there is no approval for those plans. So, creates a problem. You don't have a approved plan.
Yeah, Rian, I think Moses is referring to, there's a property in Pretoria West. It's an industrial property. It's an existing property. I think it's a very old property. And when we looked at the algae map, the property is like, it's 3 properties next to each other. But all of them, the boundary line is, according to the GIS map of Tshwane, and also the Lightstone map, is like from the northern side, it moved about 2 meters to the southern side. So your corner property is much smaller than what it's supposed to be. And I don't think that people knows it.
Okay, but you just mentioned the GIS map. You can't use that one. It's a generalization of where the demarcation of the properties are. So you should look at your surveyor general.
But it's the same as on Lightstone, that valuation that you draw. The line shows exactly the same.
As what?
It's wrong. It's not where it's supposed to be.
You said that the line on Lightstone shows exactly the same as
on the GIS map.
Yes, because they get their data from the GIS map. So you shouldn't use that map. You must draw the surveyor plans for those properties and then check it on those. Because properties are not demarcated by GIS, but actually by the surveyor general. Okay. So you must draw those. You can't use, as a first order of proof for where the property demarcation is, you can't look at GIS. It's definitely not accurate. And Lightstone gets their information from GIS. Okay. So you must use, you must go to the, you can draw it online as well. Just draw the plans for the property, the surveyor plans. And then check it. And if it then still is the same, let's say it is the same. What's your problem then?
Now, we were interested actually in the commercial property there for development, but because of the boundary lines not where it looks like it is, we didn't go ahead. And if you want to go ahead, how do you fix it? Because there's 3 properties that's involved, not the same owner.
Okay, and just to get back to the gist of the problem is that there's a line, or there's a property that's built over one of these servitudes.
Yeah. What I can do is because it's a difficult one, I'm going to send you the map, and then maybe we can draw it and I can send the answer through to everybody with the picture.
But the short answer is, if you build over a servitude, you must demolish that building, or you must move the servitude physically on the surveyor general plan. So you get out the surveyor, he draws it, the city council acknowledge or examine it, and they approve it, and then you must install it.
Welcome
Then
to
you don't have
A2Z Business Card Maker.
Oh, okay,
to
understood.
happen. Okay. Okay, Rina, is that it for tonight?
Yeah, Moses, will you close down for us? Rian, thank you very much for coming. Moses, is he still there? I think they're all gone. Now, Rian, thank you so much for your assistance and help and all the answers. Moses?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
you can close for
Can you hear me?
us, please. Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you, Rian, and much appreciated. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience, and I think for the questions that have come through. This is part of our learning. It's a long journey. We know there are lots of questions that will keep arising even down the line. That's why we need professionals like Rian to be able to assist us with their depth of experience. And thank you. In the absence of any other question, I would propose a closure for tonight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Rian, much appreciated. Can we give him a round of applause, maybe as an appreciation? Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Thank you, Moses. Rina,
Thank you. Rian, that's the closest we can get in given the COVID condition, because you are in the same field in